Well, Scotty, I'm sure you'll review, but what's the initial, I guess, feeling? I suppose disappointment is the overwhelming emotion.
Yeah, no, we're all disappointed. Clearly, it was a game that got away. Clearly, the first half was the level that we want to keep playing at. The last 2 weeks, we just haven't done it for long enough. That second half, we still wrestled back some momentum. West Coast went to another level. We always probably thought that was going to happen. And then the last quarter, we sort of lost control around the contest. And clearly, we weren't very efficient going forward, particularly inside 50, which didn't help.
Early as well, but Matty Crouch, I'm sure you'd love to get him back. Are you hopeful, confident?
Yeah, we're hopeful. Yeah, he was. He trained last week and then was still a little bit sore. So obviously, a really important player to us. So we will take no risk with him, but he'll train on Thursday in our main session along with Lynch, and fingers crossed those guys will be available.
And Dave McKay, late withdrawal illness, I guess he'll be available.
Yeah, no, he's fine. He just had a virus, so we gave him up to the morning and clearly wasn't good enough to play.
So there's a solid chance all three of those will be fit?
Yes. Yep.
No sample game on the weekend. How do you go, in the past as a selection group, picking players who obviously haven't played a sample game on the weekend?
Yeah, I mean, we've had to deal with that for the last 3 or 4 years, so we don't take that into consideration. We'll take into consideration what's the best team for going into the next week's game. But we would all love those guys that all keep playing and keep putting their hand up. But that's not their fault. But as I said, we'll pick the team what's best for Melbourne.
Do you think changes need to be made to 22 for instance, Saturday?
Oh, we'll talk about that as a match committee. But yeah, the last couple of weeks we haven't obviously won games of footy. Whether we need to make wholesale changes or a couple, that'll be up for discussion.
Do you think in hindsight, some of those selection calls that we talked about a lot last week were the wrong ones?
Oh, everything's easy in hindsight. So if we had a won, we would have been geniuses, and when we lose, we're not. So we picked the team based on what we thought we could win. I thought in the first half we executed really well what we wanted to. In the second half, they went to another level and we didn't match them.
So what does that say to you, Scott, in terms of 33-point lead? And then you say you lost control. What does it say about where you're at?
Well, it says that we went away from what we knew was working. It'd be different if we lost by 100 points and nothing worked. So clearly what we were doing in the first half was really good. I'm sure you guys watching it would have said that's a really good level, high level against last year's premiers. But we just didn't do it for long enough. And to West Coast credit, they came back and asked us a question and we didn't quite go with them.
There's a few questions of your defence, because especially the third quarter, West Coast had 7 inside 50s, I think 5 goals too. So your defence wasn't able to stop them at all.
Yeah, well, it's not just the defence. It's our team. Ours is about team defence. So 3 of those came out of stoppage. So pretty hard sometimes in low density 6v6 if they get good fluent entry in there. That's pretty hard to defend. But we probably had, if we were looking at it over the course of the game, particularly in that second half, there was instances, not trends. So that's hard as a coach to try and rectify.
Scott, you mentioned about Lynch and Crouch and McKay. What chance did Jenkins and Gibbs have picked this week?
Oh, I can't give you a percentage, Andy, but yeah, they'll be right up there in terms of what we need, in terms of what do we need to change, some of our forward line mix to get Josh back in there. Do we need Bryce through midfield, half back? Those questions, along with Dave McKay, those guys coming back in. So we'll still make decisions based on Melbourne, not on the individual.
Josh obviously has fallen the ball, kicking 6 in the sample on his last start, but Bryce was dropped for not sort of being consistent enough in areas of his game. Would it be harder to then bring him back without seeing any improvement in the sample game?
Yeah, well, it's always a challenge. Absolutely. I mean, he can't improve if he's not playing, so that's pretty tough. But we do drills in training during the week that actually rectify some of that stuff as well. So we want to see change of behaviour in that. Josh played a good game, but the 3 weeks prior to that probably wasn't quite at the level that we'd like. So we can't just keep picking players just on 1 week. We want to make sure there's a real change of behaviour, and that's part of the reason why they're not in the team. And hopefully they've understand what we need that creates winning for us, and then come back in and do the job for us.
Is that more an attitude thing then, by the sounds of things?
No, some of it's technical. No, some of it's technical there. It's not always attitude. I mean, I would never question any of our guys' attitude. So some of it's learning and education about their craft or what the team needs.
Taylor Walker's contributed to criticism. Nick Riel this morning on the radio said some pretty strong stuff about one contest in particular. How do you assess Texas' game Saturday, and especially that moment where he sort of pulled out of the contest with completely shooting?
Yeah, I think it's pretty easy from the outside to isolate one instance. So would Tex like to have his time again? I'd say he probably would. And we've all been in those situations where we maybe should have gone a little bit harder in that instance. I'm sure Nick would have as well. So we can't just isolate one moment, and that was the reason why we lost. As I said, he would like to have his time again. But we move on. We've got to keep making sure that the level that the game requires, we play at.
Is consistency the thing missing most with Tex at the moment? He has some cracking games this
Yeah,
year.
well, I would have thought he was pretty sharp the last 3 or 4 weeks. I think he's turned his form around and he's been one of our best forwards. The last 3 or 4 weeks, and yeah, he didn't have a great game on the weekend, but that's the game of footy. You've got to keep able to turn up and being consistent and playing at a high level.
Why do you think he's become a target of fans and terrorists then?
I don't read social media, so I'm not too sure.
Have you had game review yet? Have you had gap with the playing group?
No.
Okay.
How much harder is it to find consistency if you're not given, in Bryce's case, a chance to consistently string games together in the same time? How's that challenge?
Yeah, I think I've answered that. I think it's hard because the way that the sample system works and when guys can play and whether we hold goes over for emergencies and that sort of thing, it's difficult. But as I said, we'll educate our players. We make sure that they understand firstly, in behind closed doors in terms of the education process, and our coaches giving them the right information. So we assess for knowledge, then we train it, and then hopefully they can execute it on game day. So as I said, it's hard when they're not playing, but we'll be able to see it at training.
Yeah, I guess not even if there is a sample game, that consistency of playing with the same, more or less the same group every week, does that hurt your chances of being consistent?
No, that comes from within.
Happy with your contest work, Campo?
Sorry?
Happy with your contest work? I mean, centre clearances, you had the edge on West Coast, you probably were nutted in stoppages around the ground. How did you see that as bread and butter?
Though we were okay. As I said, the first half outstanding in terms of what we were able to do field position wise. Third quarter lost our way a bit and then fought back at the back end of that third quarter, and it was probably even. Even the start of the last, I think it was 6 clearances all, but it was 3-11 in the last 10 minutes. So they got field position and 3 marks inside 50, and the game's just about over. So for 90% of the game, we're happy with it, but it's that last 10% that we've got to make sure we just keep getting right.
So in those moments, what do you do in terms of you can assess that things aren't probably going to plan? What do you do? What do you say to Don?
I don't really say it. It's more, I guess, talking to the players and messaging the players, not necessarily Don. Don and I can't do much because we're not out there, but we have constant dialogue with the players down on the bench. So talk to Sloan, talk to O'Brien, talk to Brad Crouch, these guys that are coming off, and they're pretty good. They understand. Even when they come off the ground, they understand what's going on. But it's been able to execute.
You've got a reasonable sample size now. In that situation, do you miss the runner? Being able to get out there more regularly?
Oh, it's certainly, it is certainly more difficult, no doubt. Particularly structural. That's hard. Because there's a fair bit going on with the players in terms of the game's hard enough as it is, without having to send a structural component out. So sometimes you're hoping for a CB goal so you can get someone out there in a weird way. So it's certainly been more challenging. Yeah, no doubt. But we've got guys that understand the game really well that we can go to get messages or changes done, and we've been pretty good in that area.
So in Melbourne, sorry, go on.
It would be most focused though in that situation where third quarter they've got a runner on, you need to alter structure, so that's when it becomes vital. I mean, is that fair enough to assess?
Yeah, no, absolutely. But once again, we do a lot of scenario training. We give the guys scenarios, not like, these things just come out of the blue. We train the guys for different scenarios and they understand the parameters that we want to try and do and hopefully they execute. But you're in the players' hands essentially, a good portion of the time.
So in Melbourne and Darwin this week, obviously one of the pre-season flag fancies, but not travelling super well either. How do you rate their squad?
Yeah, they've got a great list, no doubt. Clearly with their win-loss, they're underperforming, in that area. But they're a dangerous team. They've got quality guys through there, we won't be taking them easy, and they'll be looking to win again, and we need to get back on the winners list. So it'll be a great challenge for us.
Are you underperforming at 5-5?
I don't know. It's for you to assess.
What I mean, you're not a team better than most. Do you think you're better than that? You think you're worse than that? You think that sums you up?
Well, I think we probably could have had a couple more wins, no doubt.
Sam Jacobs, a chance to play this weekend at AFL level, or more like giving his time out of the game?
Yeah, it's a tough one. Lee. He's missed a fair bit of footy. We would expect him to play Sandful, but we'll certainly discuss it at match committee clearly with Gawn and with his dominance, and we'll assess how Riley's going as well. He's almost a 10-game player, so we'll need to make sure we make a good call on that.
Scotty, I know you deal with it all the time, but ideally, would it be good to do away with Sandful bye so you can have the continuity every week?
You're probably the wrong person to ask for any in terms of the Sandful stuff.
And have you ever played at TIO Stadium? Have Chris played there?
Yeah, we played there 2 years ago. Yeah, we played Melbourne up there 2 years ago. So yeah, it's another interstate trip for us. We're pretty used to travelling, so no big deal.